Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Joining me now is Raven Harrison, a James Show regular. Glad to have you back on. And Raven, we were starting off the show talking about Joe Biden's proposed changes to the Supreme Court. And it was quite obvious that they're just trying to make the Supreme Court subjugate to the Congress. They want to subordinate them, I should say, to Congress, coming up with ethics violations and ways to kick them out and new ethics rules and whatnot. And they're trying to take away the Supreme Court's independence. And it's just a thinly veiled attempt from my point of view. What do you think, Raven?
It is a thinly veiled, and thanks, James. Glad to be here. It is proof that the Constitution doesn't need to be rewritten. It needs to be reread. This is the problem. This is the separation of powers it talks about. Congress doesn't have that authority, neither does the executive branch. We're supposed to have checks and balances, but they know that. This is their attempt to desperately plunge us into communism, prefaced by the fact that now everybody's celebrating Kamala as the nominee. She was not elected. She was not nominated to be the nominee. And they have the gall, James, to talk about democracy with a candidate who was installed like a toilet.
Let's take it to a more base level. At what point does the Democrat Party have to change their name, Raven? If they throw out the primary elections of all 50 states, or the 47 that actually had the elections, remember 3 of them were just deemed he was the winner. But this is after they subverted their own primary process in 2020 and 2016. They had the superdelegates overthrowing Bernie for Hillary. You had Donna Brazile slipping her the questions. You've had all kinds of not democratic things in the Democrat Party. And I think a name change is in order.
I think it is, because, this has been a history of this kind of stuff. And this is not, this isn't democracy. You have to remember, are you guys watching what's happening in Venezuela? This man was losing. The opponent, to Maduro was losing. Okay, he was up 71%, and everybody was watching in real time. And he sent armed thugs at the polling stations and after people. And now all of a sudden he's, quote, the winner, when none of the polls, exit polls, none of the data that was being posted in real time supported that. That is communism.
Raven, I have a hard time looking down on them, because I remember an election in America where we stopped counting the votes in the middle of the night and the observers were kicked out. And when the socialists turned the lights back on, we found a whole bunch of new ballots. Looks like we're winning now. Yeah, that's not something that third world socialist hellholes do. That's something that we just did.
Well, correct. And, it's legit when we do it, but it's not when they do it in other countries. And don't most votes come in? Just like, don't most people grow 4 inches when they get long COVID, and they just grow 4.5 inches and become more agile? This is how democracy works. At 3 a.m., that's when the good ballots come in, James.
Yeah, you sound so upset. And I like you upset, though, Raven. What are we going to do about this?
We're going to do something. I know what, the Roar Pack and the Roar Mission are doing is we are telling people that this is what you have to fight back against. TikTok, they're talking about the DOJ. You said in your previous section, Kamala's all over TikTok. They are erasing history as we speak. They are interfering with the elections. Google and Meta are censoring anything about the assassination attempt on President Trump. If you go Google Donald Trump and see how much Kamala information comes up, you are seeing everybody collude against Donald Trump once again. So I just tell them, go to the Roar Mission or the Roar Pack. We're going to show people, we the people, how to fight back, because politicians aren't going to fix this. These are the ones who broke it.
Real quick, Raven, who do you think the Kamala Harris's VP could be?
Okay, well, she's got a lot of communists to choose from, but I think she's going to go with, either the communist governor of Pennsylvania or the communist senator from Arizona. I think those are going to be the top picks.
Mark Kelly, yeah. I'm thinking Mark Kelly, but I've been wrong so many times. All right, thank you very much, Raven Harrison, for being back on the James Show. Appreciate it.
Thanks, James.
Love her. All right, let's stick with the phones. Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's go. Welcome. How you doing? Well, in this hour of the show, we're going to continue with the news, but I just want to put a little bug in your head because in about a half hour, we're going to play Dead or Alive, and I'm giving away 2 tickets to see Sebastian Maniscalco, which, if you're a comedian fan, you know this guy's at the top of his game. He's been around for, I think I first saw this dude like 20 years ago, and now he's so big, he's playing at the American Airlines Center, so this is a pretty big ticket for comedy fans. If you want to go ahead and get your ticket, Ticketmaster.com. But I'm gonna try and give away 2 tickets here in about a half hour, Dead or Alive. If you're new to the show, that's where I list off 10 celebrities. You tell me if they're dead or alive. It really is that easy. All right, next on the James Show, EJ Antoni is my next guest, and we're here to talk about the economic impact of the next election. We already kind of have a good idea of what the economy looks like under a Trump presidency, but EJ, help me with trying to idealize what a Kamala Harris economy would look like.
Oh, great question. Not a happy answer, but it's a good question nonetheless. I mean, imagine the Biden economy, but put on steroids. In other words, all of the inflation, the cost of living crisis, home ownership, unaffordability, etc., would all be much worse. There's this lie going around that she is somehow, for example, more moderate than Biden. You know, don't forget, she raised her hand on a debate stage saying that she was, in fact, a socialist. And frankly, the way she has behaved as vice president supports that. She was the tie-breaking vote, for example, on several major pieces of multi-trillion-dollar spending legislation, all of which contributed, again, to things like inflation and our current cost of living crisis.
All right, but EJ, you're from the Heritage Foundation, and I've been told y'all want to turn our economy into the Handmaid's Tale. So wouldn't Kamala Harris be better than that?
Well, that's not all we want to do. I mean, we want to, return the smoking section to airplanes. We want to get rid of seatbelts in cars, you name it. I mean, if there's anything we can do to put us back to the 1950s, sign me up for that. I honestly, I challenge anyone to find in the Project 2025 mandate, which is online. Anybody can go read it. I challenge anyone to find anything in that document that supports all of the ludicrous things that the left is saying about Project 2025. And I'm confident you're not going to find it.
You don't want to outlaw all abortions?
Well, are you asking what I want to do, or are you asking what's in Project 2025?
Project 2025, right.
Because there's really nothing in Project 2025 that says you're going to outlaw all abortions.
No, not at all. Now, look,
diminish abortion, absolutely.
I think they might be doing y'all a favor because never before has Heritage Foundation gotten this much attention for a report that y'all put out at least every 4 years, if not every 2. I mean, it's totally normal and not at all scary for a conservative-minded think tank to put out a list of conservative principles and recommendations for the next administration. How did this one get blown up to be something that's supposed to be scary?
I think part of it is the fact that if you look at the people who are running right now, they both have records. In other words, President Trump has a record as president, and you also have a vice president who has a record as vice president. And those records are very stark. And so this is kind of a unique time in American history where you have these people running against each other. It's at least unique in modern American history. So I say all that to say that what the Democrats are running on right now is not their record. They can't run on their record because their record's been terrible. And so they essentially have to put up these straw men and say, that's who we're running against. Because if they were to say we're running against Donald Trump and his successful economy, they'd have a hell of a fight on their hands.
Well, EJ, we have President Biden saying he would be willing to let the current tax cuts for personal income tax rates to expire at the end of 2025, which they would naturally do if no one does anything. Trump's tax cuts was written into expire at the end of next year. Do we know what Kamala Harris would do? Where does she stand on that?
She has committed to exactly the same thing. In fact, she goes one step further to say not only let all of those tax cuts expire so that the middle class will pay more in taxes, but then she also wants to raise the corporate income tax rate even more. And the reason why that's so important for middle America is the fact that corporations don't actually pay taxes. Now, is there some accountant who's sitting there and writes a check to the IRS? Sure, absolutely. But how does that actually get paid? It gets paid for through lower returns to shareholders. That includes things like pensions that middle America has. It means higher prices for consumers, again, middle America, and it means lower wages for all the people who work at those corporations. Again, that's targeting middle America. And one last thing, this is the big dirty little secret that none of the Democrats want to talk about, but the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, that tax reform from President Trump, was not actually simply a tax cut. It was tax reform. And what it did is it took away some huge deductions for very high income earners in high tax states, a.k.a. the Democrat donor class in places like New York, New Jersey, California, Illinois. And so those folks are paying more now in taxes. If you got rid of that tax reform, not only would you raise taxes on the middle class, you would give a windfall, a tax cut, again, to the wealthy Democrat donors in those states.
Yeah, that's the SALT taxes, right? State and local taxes.
Exactly.
Right.
You're exactly right. The state and local tax deduction. Bingo.
Yeah, I think they capped it at $10,000, and that's not a big deal for us, but that's a big deal if you're California, Connecticut, New York, all that stuff. EJ, thank you for taking some time from the Heritage Foundation to explain some of this economic stuff to us. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me.
All right, where they find you outside of the James Show, EJ?
Best place to find me is going to be on X, and the handle there is @RealEJAntoni.
All right, I'll go follow it right now. That's a good start for EJ Antoni on the James Show. Coming up next, listen, I've been telling you that Dan Bongino's been doing his best shows ever for the last couple of weeks, really since the Trump shooting, just because he's in the unique position and has the unique background to explain things like no one else. I'm tired of telling you about it. Actually, I had to pull a clip from his show today that I'm going to play in the next segment because the insight that he has on what we're learning about the Trump shooting, I can't say it better than him. So I'll just play it for you next on the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.